everybody, my name is C4, welcome back to the channel, and now that the 2024 NFL Draft has concluded, let's throw some rankings and player grades and draft pick analysis and everything in between for my beloved Philadelphia Eagles. Now, if you want to see me get up some spicy hot takes for the rest of the NFL, all 31 other teams, I'll be dropping that video a little bit later on tonight. I would have dropped this yesterday, Saturday, at the completion of the 7th round, but I was out for a diaper party for one of my buddies that's about to have a kid, and things, doink, salads, beers, steaks, sun, it was had. I literally crashed when I got home. So now, today's the day that I finally recuperate, and talk about some of these picks. So I'm going to highlight what I talk about, how I kind of grade these picks with the RAS score, which is a site that you see right behind, which is the relative athletic score, to give everyone an idea how these players tested throughout the process, because I think it is almost a casual take to be like, look at these athletes. Look at, it's almost like a Madden thing. Like, I'm sorting by fastest 40-yard dash, and I'm taking those guys. But I think the biggest thing for the Philadelphia Eagles coming to this offseason, that this was an incredibly slow team, especially on the defensive side of the ball last year. We had to go out and get faster. And when we're talking about our first and second round picks, you look at the corners, the top two athletic freaks at the corner position. Surprise, surprise. Quinyon Mitchell, first round pick, number 2. Cooper DeJean, second round pick, number 1. We needed to get speed. It wasn't just a casual fan analysis like, man, this is a slow team. Everyone in the building knew it, and they went out and did the damn thing. We're going to start here quickly in the first round with Quinyon Mitchell. If you want to see my overall live reaction to that, it is up on the YouTubes. But I was a fan of this pick. There is very slight football anxiety with this selection because all the DBs were available. Terry Arnold was still there. Nate Wiggins was there. Kool-Aid McKinstry, Cooper DeJean at that time were all still there. So there was a little bit of anxiety that Philadelphia, with their pick of the litter at the corners, we went with the guy out of Toledo who looks awesome. I think it's a great pick. But there's still always an element of, we went with the guy from Toledo, we didn't go with the guy that was almost equally graded by pretty much everybody that had SEC production at Alabama. There's always a little bit of worry there. However, when you look at the athletic traits, that is where Quinyon Mitchell stands above the rest of those first-round corners. You have Nate Wiggins, who ran, what was it, a 4.27 or something like that? Yeah, so, Mitchell, in the same speed category, weighs 20 pounds more. It's a different type of athlete, different type of human being. That's another little tidbit I loved about Quinyon Mitchell I found out during draft day, is that Nick Saban, during the draft analysis, said this was the #1 recruit that Alabama was trying to get out of the portal, being like, hey, come on, come join Alabama. Come, you are going to be an absolute lock of the first round. You're going to dominate. You're going to light it up here. He said, I'm going to stay committed to the project here at Toledo. I'm still going to get drafted in the first round at Toledo because I'm going to go to the Senior Bowl, and I'm going to dominate the Senior Bowl. I'm going to go to the Combine, and I'm going to dominate the Combine. And he has been able to do all of those things and still stay committed to his team, which I do think there is definitely some value to that. Elite ball production, 52 PBUs in his career, 6 interceptions, 5 of them coming last year in 2022. And he's a pro-ready corner. I think making the jump up from Toledo, the MAC, to the NFL, we are built as a team, built as a secondary. He doesn't have to start right away. But I think if this idea that it feels like Howie Roseman and company think James Bradbury is going to thrive in Vic Fangio's system. We're going to get back a little bit of that return on investment after paying him from that second team All-Pro year, and not what we saw last year, where he was literally a liability to the defensive side of the ball. But I think if Bradbury is what he is now, and the regression just hit at a very unfavorable time, I could absolutely see Quinyon Mitchell lining up on the other side of Darius Slay week 1 to start this season. Great pick for the Philadelphia Eagles. I'm giving it an A. In the second round, Philadelphia went out and got the most athletic defensive back in the draft class in Cooper DeJean, who I would love to see get the opportunity at corner. The versatility there reminds me of a longer Sheldon Brown. For those of you that are old heads and remember Sheldon Brown, the great Sheldon Brown. If you don't know who Sheldon Brown is, first of all, come on. What are we doing? Second of all, just go look at the Reggie Bush hit. If you want to just get an idea what Sheldon Brown was as a corner. And if we view Cooper DeJean as a safety, I think he wears a lot of the same hats that Malcolm Jenkins wore when he was in this defense. Malcolm Jenkins literally played everything. You can play him at corner, play him at slot, high safety, put him in the box, have him be a linebacker a little bit. I think DeJean can be utilized with that versatility. I think Cooper DeJean is a perfect fit for a Vic Fangio defense. I think I would almost throw all these people that are saying, oh, he's a good punt returner. You're not wasting this on that defense that we saw last year as a punt returner. We got Britton Covey. We got Aeneas Smith. We got all these guys for the punt return. This guy needs to contribute on the defense. We got to find a way to get this guy on the field and let him make plays. 2-year starter at Iowa. 5 TFLs, 20 pass deflections, 7 interceptions. I think 5 of those 7, or 4 or 5 of those 7 were pick sixes. House calls, exactly the type of playmaker that you want to get on the defense. Freak athlete. He can cover. He can make playmaking abilities. He's the best tackling DB in this year's draft class. There's just no way that he is not going to find a way. Even if, unfortunately, from what I literally just said, even if it's just special teams, there is no way he's not an impact playmaker for the Philadelphia Eagles next year. And I think at the upside, I think when I talked about when this pick happened, go check out the live reaction to the Cooper DeJean pick. It was probably our best all weekend. Is that even if somehow, some way, right, we have a very crowded DB room, right? You got Slay still playing at a pretty high level. Bradbury somehow turns it around, and you almost have to let him start to justify that contract. And then the slot, we got, Maddox, maybe Isaiah Rodgers contributes a little bit. And maybe it takes a little bit for these young DBs to get on the field, right? Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean. Look at 2025. Today's luxury is tomorrow's necessity. There's no foregone conclusion. Slay's going to be here in 2025. Bradbury sure as shit isn't. Maddox is only on a 1-year deal. I don't know how long Rodgers' contract is. Not that long. This DB room is going to look drastically different in 2025. So even if it's a little bit of a struggle, and that would be awesome. If you tell me right now that Cooper DeJean and Quinyon Mitchell, it's going to be tough for them to get on the field, that's great, because that means the guys that we have are redeeming themselves after last year's terrible season. But in 2025, the moves that we made, getting both DeJean and Quinyon Mitchell, are going to pay immediate dividends if these guys somehow don't find a way to be great as rookies. So Cooper DeJean, A+ draft pick for the Philadelphia Eagles. In the 3rd round, Philly got Jalix Hunt, defensive end from Houston Christian, which was, a tough pick to get hyped for, because it's just kind of like, all right, cool. Let's see what Vic Fangio is cooking. His reports came out that he was one of Vic Fangio's favorite players in this class. A little worried about the production. I like to think that when you get someone from Houston Christian, I want to see this guy have like 20 sacks a year. I want to see this guy absolutely dominate the competition, right? And you look at what he's done, 2 years as a converted defensive end. He was originally a safety at Cornell. So he started at safety, converted to an edge rush. Anything over a Raz is very good. So it's fair to say very good athlete. Maybe not elite, but if S is elite, he's an A-tier athlete. You look at the production, 20 TFLs, 13.5 sacks, 5 forced fumbles in 2 years as a starter, primarily as a pass rusher at Houston Christian. Not bad. Assuming that he's very much like learning on the job. It all kind of makes sense here a little bit, but he has athletic traits, high ceiling, needs to develop. He's a long pass rusher. He's absolutely a developmental guy. And when you look at the Eagles' depth chart right now, especially as far as pass rush is concerned, there's not a lot of reps that are going to be up for grabs right now. So it makes sense with him being a project where he's going to fit on the depth chart. And what kind of made me come around on this pick a little bit, everything is kind of traits and similarities. We see it in college all the time, right? The lazy college comps of like, oh, let's throw an NFL comp out here from a college player to a guy that also went to that college. But a lot of times it makes sense because that's how these teams recruit. They look for a certain style of pass rusher, and as long as there's not a lot of turnover on the coaching staff, those are always going to be the kind of players they try to get. What one player has almost an identical athletic trait, background trait to Jalix Hunt? That's a pass rusher. Pretty damn good one. Hassan Reddick. Very, very similar as far as athletic score and how they scored athletically. Hassan Reddick started his career as a safety, then converted to a pass rusher, and ended up being pretty damn good. Jalix Hunt started his career as a safety, turned himself into a pass rusher. Maybe a little bit of a difference between playing at Temple and playing at Houston Christian. But the similarities need to be acknowledged between these two players. Howie and company got it tight, and I would be absolutely shocked if this comparison was not brought up during that draft day discussion about whether or not we get this guy to Houston. And on top of the fact, he's a Vic Fangio guy, got the Vic Fangio stamp of approval, which isn't quite as good, obviously, as Jeff Stoutland saying, I want this guy to enroll in Stoutland U. But Vic Fangio has a reputation. He has obviously enough pull, enough sway to be confident that if he really likes a guy, he sees a role there. And I think with how Vic likes to use his edge rushers, drops them back in coverage, wants that versatility, a guy with a safety background, makes some sense. This pick went from like a C plus head scratcher, what are we doing, to the more you dive into it, I think we give this a very favorable B grade for the Philadelphia Eagles. Next up for the Philadelphia Eagles was Will Shipley, the running back out of Clemson, former 5-star recruit, also big-time athlete, as you could see, versatile player. I don't think it means anything into the conversation of Saquon Barkley. Clearly, you know, Saquon is the starter. I think if I was Kenny Gainwell, though, I'd be slightly concerned because stylistically, Will Shipley is very similar to Kenneth Gainwell. I think Will Shipley slightly underperformed at Clemson, given the hype that came around as a 5-star, but he's a big-time athlete. His best season came 2 years ago in 2022, where he had almost 1,200 yards rushing. He's a guy that will always catch 30, 40 balls out of the backfield, and I think we got to see that 5-star athleticism on display at his pro day, which you love to see it. I think he is a tough runner. I think he is a complete running back in regards that, you know, all right pass pro for his size. Not a big guy to be out there on third down trying to pick up an edge rusher, but not bad. Can catch the football as good as any running back in this class. Athletically speaking, has the juice to make plays. One thing that was underrated, when I watched Clemson play and you see Will Shipley, they'd bring him in goal line, have him run between the tackles, and he can move the pile a little bit. For a guy that was under 210 pounds, I always thought that was impressive. So I think that there is an area where, you know, competes with Kenny G for some third down, catching the ball, the backfield reps. But with Saquon Barkley's injury history, you can never have enough depth at running back. And it kind of stays true to the fact that Howie Roseman loves drafting former elite high school recruits. You go back, look at the last couple drafts. You were a 5-star. I swear to God, if you're a 5-star, that is absolutely a tiebreaker for Howie Roseman, which might not be the case for every single GM and how these guys set up their boards. But I love the pick of Will Shipley, and for the time, for the range that we got him in, day 3, this for me is an A pick for the Philadelphia Eagles. Up next, the Philadelphia Eagles selected Ainias Smith, gadget player, wide receiver, slot from Texas A&M. Dane Brugler gave the pro comp of Elijah Moore, which for Philadelphia needing a slot wide receiver, Elijah Moore is a pretty solid NFL level slot wide receiver. Ainias Smith and Devin Achane were kind of like a duo of gadget players for A&M. Unfortunately, Smith not the athlete that Achane was, but you get a guy for Philadelphia. I would be remiss if I said that this was my favorite wide receiver on the board for the Eagles at that time. But understanding the versatility, understanding the change of special teams, where obviously there's going to be more. Ideally, people are thinking more opportunities to return kicks. I would say if I'm Britton Covey, I'm raising my eyebrows at this selection, because seemingly the Eagles don't trust Britton Covey on the offense as a slot, which I saw with him in Utah. I think he could play offense and get some reps there, not just be solely a special teamer. But when you're at that spot on the depth chart, if Smith is almost as good as a kick returner and he could be a guy that we trust a little bit in the slot, you get to a spot where, again, Britton Covey, the eyebrows probably raising up a little bit there. Smith's production as a receiver, never great. He's coming off his best year, 53 catches, almost 800 yards, 2 touchdowns, only 1 drop, so doesn't drop the football. Physical, that was something that Nick Sirianni was saying at the press conference there, runs through a lot of contact, which is an underrated aspect. You need that kind of dog in at the slot position. So, I'm not over the moon about this pick, but I appreciate what he can bring as a gadget player. I'll be interested to see how he could fit potentially as a slot, because I imagine they're going to give him a chance through training camp to see, hey, are you going to be our starting slot? Are you going to climb your way up that depth chart? We got to see, and I appreciate the gadget ability and how unique you can use him as a returner as well. So I'd give this one a B-. The Philadelphia Eagles did the pick that everyone wanted them to make at this point. Once the linebacker market had dried up, it was time to kind of go, let's go with the good PR move here, and they bring in Axeman Jr. Jeremiah Trotter Jr., linebacker out of Clemson. The value was there. Everyone, the more casual fans were like, let's get Trotter in the second round. Athletically speaking, there was limitations to Jeremiah Trotter's game that he was always going to be a day 3 pick. I did think early day 3, probably, because the pros, what he does well, he does very well. His weaknesses, though, likely are never going to, he's just not a big-time athlete. We didn't get the 40-yard dash. We didn't get the explosiveness testing. Likely for a reason. But, undeniable production. Big-time recruit as well, very similar to Will Shipley. I think Howie Roseman values that. He was like a top 5 linebacker of his recruiting class. I think he was like a higher recruit than Marvin Harrison Jr., which is one of the little tidbits they brought up about him. But, Jeremiah Trotter, Dane Brugler comp, TJ Edwards. If he could be our TJ Edwards and have that name and that legacy to the city and to the team, that is going to be awesome. Absolutely awesome. My gut says right now he's going to be, that's actually not a bad career trajectory. TJ Edwards started, had to grind his way. He was a UDFA, wasn't a draft pick, but, stood out on special teams, then slowly started eating more reps in at linebacker, and eventually developed into a starter. I think that is a realistic approach here for Trotter. It's going to be tough for him, assuming Nakobe Dean stays healthy, he's probably going to be a starter. Devin White, probably going to be a starter, but, maybe he could be the next guy in line there. I don't know if the Philadelphia Eagles are done addressing the linebacker position. I'm still a little concerned about that coming out from the draft, but I think what you get is an outstanding run defender. Trotter as a 2-year full-time starter at Clemson, 195 tackles, 29.5 TFLs, 13 sacks, 3 forced fumbles, 16 PBUs, and 4 picks. And the thing you need to know about all those production that looks great is that he does that all without S-tier athleticism. He's not for a comp of a Clemson linebacker. He's not Isaiah Simmons out there. So much like TJ Edwards, it's the IQ. It's the football IQ. It's putting yourself in the right position to make those plays. And that is something that, it doesn't regress. Football IQ does not regress. If you are a smart linebacker, you will always find yourself in the right position, to put yourself in the right position to make a play. Yeah, if you get lined up one-on-one with a big-time athlete, you're probably going to struggle a little bit. And there's no real way to develop that out of you. But being in the right place at the right time, I think it's a great spot for Trotter. I love the fact that we didn't reach. It wasn't a nostalgia, let's make this pick for the fans, but reach. I feel like he fell to us. We got him at an appropriate range. And I would give this ultimately, I'd say it's a B grade, but because it's freaking Jeremiah Trotter Jr. and the vibes are immaculate with the selection, I give it B+. Next up, we got our newest member to Jeff Stoutland University, Trevor Keegan, the guard from the national champion winning Michigan Wolverines, was a first-team All-Big Ten in 2022, second team in 2023. Solid athlete as well with a 9.2 on the RAS, which is what the Eagles do. I love it. I appreciate the Philadelphia Eagles that throw a little bit of pink slips into the mix where they want big-time athletes. And that, that's what you need, though, when you have Jeff Stoutland, a guy that is arguably the best offensive line coach of all time, if not top 5, especially in terms of growth and development. What he likes to see is give me the athletes, and I will refine them. And Trevor Keegan definitely fits into that mold. He's a big dog. He's a hoss on the inside. Blue-collar blocker is the words. Dane Brugler's draft guide there. I think you just got an experienced player that's a solid athlete. I don't think we're going to necessarily, say that he's going to be competing for that right guard spot, because that is absolutely the one question mark right now on the Eagles' offensive line. And as it stands, looks like Tyler Steen probably has the inside track at starting. He looked pretty solid there last year. But anytime Philadelphia can get a lineman, as long as you're cracking that 9 RAS personally, and you got the Jeff Stoutland thumbs up, which clearly every lineman pick will, you got to feel pretty solid about that. We're going to throw a B grade here for Keegan. We're here again for the Madden picks. 9.7 RAS on the 6'6", 230-pound Johnny Wilson. Well, after he ran a 4.52, I thought he would be long gone by the range Philly got him. Great value. I do think, and I saw like it kind of lines up with some of the comps, reminds me of Brandon Jacobs. Remember Brandon Jacobs, the Giants running back that was like 6'4", 260, ran like a 4.5, and like looks like Tarzan, plays like Jane. I think there's a slight of that. Johnny Wilson does not play like a, you look at that and be like, holy shit, he's Mike Evans. Should moss guys more than he probably should. Should be a little bit more physical than what he is. I think it's going to be interesting to see how Philadelphia used him. When they made this pick, my initial reaction is Howie Roseman got another one of these like developmental project tight end type players, which he very well could be. But undeniable traits, and when you are that big and that fast, day 3, you take those picks all goddamn day. Love this selection, even though, I thought he should have been a lot more dominant than what he was in college. 2022, 2 years ago, was his best year. 900 yards, 5 touchdowns, almost 21 yards per catch, which is outstanding for a guy that big. A lot of times you might just see something like this, like, oh, he's going to convert to tight end, he's going to be a big slot, but you saw a lot of vertical ability out of Johnny Wilson in last year. Made some big plays as well, had missed a couple games. Keon Coleman was kind of the alpha, the go-to last year for Florida State. But Johnny Wilson is an incredibly unique player, and it'll be very interesting to see if Philadelphia keeps him at wide receivers, like a red zone mismatch. Do they start slowly developing him as a tight end? Do they have him do a little bit of both? Don't know yet, but I love taking a swing on an athlete like this in day 3. I give this pick an A. Final pick for the Philadelphia Eagles, very much a pick that I love. Dylan McMahon, center from NC State. Now, I think I saw in the broadcast they had him as a tackle, which I don't think he's ever played much tackle in his life. But he's played guard, he's played center, and this is a big-time athlete. One of the best athletes at any of the offensive line spots in this year's draft. Getting that type of value late, if the fact that Jeff Stoutland saw this athletic background and was like, yep, I want that guy, that also makes me feel pretty damn good. Right? If we were some other team and then we'd be like, oh man, we just got an athlete, can he actually develop? Well, if this guy can develop, Jeff Stoutland is going to find a way to get it out of him. I absolutely adore this pick. It's incredibly unfair to say, look, it's Kelsey. This is going to be our, but similarities, man. Slightly undersized, elite athleticism. This was a big-time player. The versatility is off the charts. He was an honorable All-ACC mention. I think you got a guy that, perfect for our scheme as well. We got Juergens, and then we got a guy that's pretty much like Juergens. Like, we have a type at center. Like, Kelsey was a type, right? We will just say it's the Jason Kelsey type. We got Cam Juergens because he was a Jason Kelsey type. We got Dale McMahon because he's a Jason Kelsey type. I absolutely love this pick. For a late-round guy, it's not always a lock to make the roster. He's 100% making this roster because of the interior flexibility. He can play all those positions, and the athleticism. This pick is getting an A for me as well. Finishing up here with the UDFAs, Howie Roseman pretty much came out and said in the final press conference, like the least amount of UDFA guys he signed, which usually Philly is very aggressive in getting UDFAs, especially the studs we've been able to find all the years. Your Trey Burtons, your TJ Edwards, your Reed Blankenships. And then it's just like, okay, we got a lineman that's incredibly not a Jeff Stoutland guy, but, 6'7", 350. All right. Then got like the least athletic wide receiver in the whole draft. Okay. Trying to get a little bit more athleticism here. McClellan Castles, Tennessee. Pretty good RAS score, all things considered. Not really a lot of production. He was a UC Davis, all-team, first-team Big Sky. So played pretty well in a smaller school. Went to Tennessee to kind of finish out his college career and 283 yards. Had 5 touchdowns last year. The athleticism is interesting. Not really a blocker, more of a receiving tight end. So be likely a camp body, but we will see. I think there's opportunities for the back end here. The second half of that tight end depth chart room. Maybe something's there. Andre Sam, safety from LSU. Led LSU in interceptions last year, athletically speaking. Somewhat limited. At best case scenario, special teams ability could be there, but again, I would assume likely just a training camp body. Roseman got a Georgia Bulldog here. Kendall Milton, interesting body type. Physical, very physical runner. Short yardage guy, had 14 touchdowns on 790 yards last year for the Georgia Bulldogs. 6.5 yards per carry. Obviously somewhat limited as a burst. As a guy that's going to be able to be shifty in the backfield. Very much a specific type. Best case scenario, power back that can give you a little bit in terms of pass protection. But interesting guy, and I think, you look at the background. He was a 4-star recruit, top 10 running back of his class. Could be just like nice little power back that you stash on the practice squad all season long. We finish up with easily the crown jewel of the very limited UDFA class here for the Philadelphia Eagles. Gabe Hall was projected to be a 4th-round pick. Fell to us. UDFA brings elite length and size and athleticism to the position. 9.25 in the RAS. And I think when you look at the Eagles, clearly we're going to be shifting a little bit. I think when Vic Fangio's scheme, you look at what we have there on the defensive line, you can always accumulate more athletes in the mold like this. Guys that Vic Fangio can go and develop. And I think I'd be a little bit worried if I'm some of those guys on the bottom end of that depth chart right now for the Philadelphia Eagles, whether or not this guy here, the UDFA, is going to be able to come in and steal their spot on the final 53. Last 2 years in Baylor, he was honorable mention All Big 12 in 2022. Led Baylor Bears in sacks, 16.5 TFLs, 12.5 sacks in his career. Really is just like a 3-year starter. But you get, you're more so just gambling on the projection and the development you might be able to get out of Gabe Hall. And I think you have a player that, this could be another one of those guys. Wouldn't be surprised. This is a Vic guy that's like, yep, much like Jalix Hunt. I'm going to be able to develop that guy, and we're going to be able to have a guy that can contribute on this defense maybe 2-3 years down the line. So not a bad UDFA selection there for the Eagles. So in closing, and all in all, man, an outstanding draft for the Philadelphia Eagles. And if you would have said C Ford like 2 months ago, do a quick mock draft for the Philadelphia Eagles, there's a chance that it would have ended up with like 90% of our actual draft class, right? Cooper DeJean, as far as this draft class is concerned, not necessarily overall, but Cooper DeJean was a blue chip DB. First round, some people had him close to a top 10 overall player. Quinyon Mitchell was a blue chip corner in this year's draft class. Will Shipley, former 5-star recruit running back from Clemson. We got Dylan McMahon. Oh, we just want that Kelsey guy that's built like Jason Kelsey late. Sure, that's going to go over well with the Eagles fans. Hey, how about we draft the athletic 6'7", 230-pound, 4'5" wide receiver weapon? That's on brand for the Philadelphia Eagles. We get Keegan, a national champion-winning O-lineman with a big-time RAS score. If you're looking in ranking gadget players at the wide receiver spot, Aeneas Smith is certainly near the top of it. We drafted Jalex Hunt. I wouldn't be surprised. We're like, which guy here? Athletically speaking, background speaking, just at the base, long way to go, not throwing out this as a player comp. We're like, hey, who's kind of like Hassan Reddick? Oh, let's go get a guy that's literally starting the exact same way Hassan Reddick kind of started out in Jalex Hunt. And then we finish up with like the ultimate vibes pick of Jeremiah Trotter Jr. And while I haven't been arguably the biggest pound the table, we need to get Jeremiah Trotter, that was because all the discussion was he's going to be a second-round pick, is going to be a third-round pick. The value for where we got Jeremiah Trotter was absolutely, I'm on board with it, and I'm here to see if he can not only live up to the legacy of his dad, but become, like the pro comp, TJ Edwards 2.0. Start, grind his way up from special teams, and eventually wear that 54, seeing that back out there in the middle of the defense. I think, unbiasedly, if you look around, everyone that's throwing around draft grades, I think the floor of this Eagles draft is an A. But for me, I'm giving it an A+, one of my favorite drafts in recent memory. Love just about every single player that we picked. There was not, and I think the number one thing ultimately, when I just sit back and look, and I look at like, let me see how the actual draft panned out, where would I have gone different? Is there any picks that I would have been like, yeah, I really would have went this guy? I think, honestly, Aeneas Smith, probably the only guy that there was other wide receivers there that I might have gone in that direction, just because I think they might be more of an opportunity to play as a star, as a slot for us right away than someone like Smith, who could also be a slot, but maybe you're looking more as a gadget, punt return ability type guy. But even then, I still don't disagree with the pick. I understand the pick, and I think it absolutely, there's a scenario that works out for the Eagles as well. So I love to hear what you guys think about the Eagles draft. If you guys want to see me react, kind of throw some quick grades for the other 31 teams, I'm probably going to do it tonight. Maybe I'll wait on the feedback a little bit because I do need to start working on our 10-year rebuilds from the fallout of the NFL draft. But we're going to have a lot of fun there, fellas. So I hope you guys do enjoy. If it is your first time stopping by, don't be afraid to hit that subscribe button, smash the like button if you enjoyed. Until next time, it's your boy C4. Say peace out, love ya. Have a good one. Go Birds!